Today we're talking about AI and my thoughts on what is intriguing and also concerning about the AI revolution, which we've all heard about, that's taken the world and the internet by storm. So first of all, AI is an absolutely intriguing tool, and it's something that we can't ignore. But at the same time, I also think that all of the talk about AI that we see going on today and all of the things that are driving the markets upwards in association with AI are actually a monumental hype bubble. It's been said that if you were to invest in automobiles back at the turn of the 20th century, whenever you realized that cars were going to be the future, you would have lost all of your money, because the companies which initially started investing in the production of cars eventually all went out of business. Out of the hundreds or even thousands of companies and institutions which were trying to become the next big thing, you never would have gambled on choosing the right ones that would become the Fords and big names like that. It's the same thing probably with AI. It's true that AI is going to be an important part of the future, absolutely. But the companies right now that say that they hold the keys to that probably don't. It's probably going to be future iterations made by companies which we may not even have heard of yet, that are going to ultimately represent the true next wave of the future. Imagine if you were going to invest in the internet during the time of the .com bubble. Maybe you would wind up investing in things like Yahoo and AOL. Would you have chosen the big tech giants of today? Not necessarily. You probably would have lost most of your investment capital in the end if you tried to invest in something early in the cycle of its emergence. So I think there's a lot of hype, and I think that there's a bubble in the markets. I also think that there's a lot of people who are hyped up about the use of AI who don't understand what it is they're actually getting themselves into. I think it's interesting how a lot of people who seem to be really, really enamored of AI, the ones who really want to adopt it for use in the workplace and things like that, they're often the people who wouldn't be able to do what AI can do themselves. They're the people who want AI to write a draft for a presentation, not because it saves them time, but because they just wouldn't have the skill to do that themselves. And that brings me to a major concern. If a person is trying to use AI to compensate for the absolute lack of skill, well, those are going to be the very first people to lose their jobs to AI. Because somebody is going to look at this and they're going to say, well, why do I need a stupid person using AI to make up for their stupidity when I can just use AI myself and take that individual out of the equation? And those people are going to lose their jobs, and they're going to not probably find another good job because they didn't actually invest in their own personal skill. They never upskilled themselves. They never challenged themselves, and now they aren't going to be able to easily adapt to that new environment. So I think there's a trap in there somewhere where people need to be very cautious about using AI as a crutch. And yet at the same time, that doesn't change the fact we should be understanding the importance of using it as a tool. And there is a difference there. Now, all of that being said, I also wanted to segue into another topic which is sort of related, I think, and that is how the world is just changing so much these days. And we see a lot of really weird stuff happening in politics, in the world. It just seems ridiculous. Like the rise of something like Hawk or Fartcoin. We see people piling into the cryptos. We see politicians making posts on social media and the internet that seem absolutely nonsensical. Things like Elon Musk might be doing, or Trump might be doing. Absolute hogwash being put out on social media platforms by people who are supposed to be credible, serious leaders of the free world. These individuals are doing ridiculous, stupid stuff. And you can say, well, no, they're trying to play some sort of 4D chess. They're trying to, they know what they're doing. Well, do they? Not necessarily, because increasingly people who aren't actually qualified in a traditional sense are able to feign qualification by writing fame that they didn't really earn. Fame that they have because of things like the internet and social media and artificial intelligence has given people a platform that they never would have had in the past. So you see, it's kind of like how if you want to invest in the stock market, now all you have to do is download an app on your phone and you can day trade all day long if that's what you want to do. But there was a time when if you wanted to trade in the stock market, you would probably have to have a relationship with a brokerage, and you'd pay a significant fee for every trade you did. And you'd have to call up a real person on the phone and say, hey, I would like to buy X number of shares of this particular company. You'd have to think a lot about it. You'd probably do your research. You wouldn't be investing in some sort of a meme coin in the crypto space hoping to get rich overnight. Like that kind of thing just didn't happen. But now it happens all the time. And it isn't just random foolish people doing this. It's actually people who are supposedly very credible. Look at the NFT craze. When people who had a lot of money were spending that money on NFTs, thousands and thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars in some cases, for things which essentially didn't even exist. And you would look at them and you'd think, oh my goodness, yeah, but these are credible people. They couldn't all just be crazy, could they? And yet maybe they are. But people can hide their ignorance now because there's so many tools, digital, technologically driven tools that allow people to create the perception of credibility without actually having true credibility. Now, what happens when we move into a world where artificial intelligence grows to the next level, when it actually becomes good? Because right now it really isn't all that great. Maybe it is, in a way. It's impressive, but it's not great. It's impressive, but you can tell the difference very easily, very clearly between something AI generated and something human generated most of the time. The problem is sometimes you can't. There's a lot of people being deceived by artificial intelligence already. Fake images being shared around on social media. But right now it's pretty easy to tell if you've got a brain on your shoulders. But what happens when we get to a point where AI can outcode anyone? It can create a better piece of art. It can create a more coherent piece of literature. And you truly can't tell the difference between something made by a computer and something made by a person. What happens when there isn't any need for the human element because we've reached the conclusion that artificial intelligence can do everything better than legacy conventional people? Where does that leave us? Does that lead us to a place where we see the end and final collapse of civilization? Does it lead us to a place where life is sort of like the existence of the Borg in Star Trek? I don't know. But I do think that the end of this path leads to an existential crisis for humanity, most likely. It also leads to a place where we're going to have to figure out how to have certain guardrails, which will empower us as individuals to retain what it means to be human in a world where technology empowers us in many ways to transcend the human experience. Now, a lot of those things are questions which will be asked probably by people in the far distant future. These aren't really things that we're going to be probably having to figure out in our lifetimes. The lessons to apply in our lifetimes are that no matter how much somebody wants to try to tell you that AI is going to be the future, it's still important for you to develop skills on your own. It's important for you to think for yourself. Because if you choose to rely too much on things like AI, you're probably going to be the first person to wind up being replaced when someone realizes that they don't really need you if they can use the tool. It's an interesting time to be living in, certainly. I think about it often how I managed to be born into the beginning of the personal computer era. I was able to play on an Apple II in the attic. I remember when internet wasn't common in the home. And now we have artificial intelligence and we have VR playing a common role in all of our lives. And we've got more power in the touchscreen phone in our pockets than we used to have in supercomputers. It's a crazy thing that we've managed to see so much change in our lifetime. We went from SimCity Classic to the age of Cities Skylines. We went from the early days of text-based adventure games to probably one day we'll get to see an Elder Scrolls 6. In any case, certainly it's an age of miracles, but it's also a time when it's become easier than ever for people to replace real things with fake ones. It's easier than ever for people to hide behind a screen and erode their character because you can go post on Instagram some sort of a picture of your adventures at the cafe or whatever it might be. You can always make it look like you're having a great life on Instagram while you treat people like garbage and don't have any social life. In reality, you can make yourself look like a very successful person while actually not investing in any of the foundational things that give a person truly good character. So, in many ways, I think we have to kind of let go of some of that noise and go back to the simple foundational fundamentals that make human society great. Connection with people, direct communication with people, getting out from behind the screen, calling an audible when something is wrong. We need to get back to a conventional, honest interpretation of politics, investment, all of those things that we've always thought of as being serious things, things that aren't supposed to be easy, things that aren't supposed to be conducted via tweet, get back to principles that endure. You know, I have a few silver coins and bars that I buy, usually for their collectible value, not so much because I'm investing in silver, just because I like the design of the coin, but also because it's something which will always have value. And if I were to die and pass them on to somebody, they would have value. You take them down to the coin shop, it doesn't matter what happens to the economy or what happens in the world. I'm able to promise you the day I was born and the day I die, an ounce of silver will always have value. Can't necessarily promise that about cryptocurrency, though, you know? Yeah, it might have value, or it might not. See, the thing is, a lot of the things that are being done in the world today are being done with a very short-sighted lens. We do things based on what we think the reaction is going to be next week or a quarter from now. But do we really do things with a mindfulness for what's going to be meaningful, valuable, and substantive when we leave this earth and future generations take over? That's the question we should be asking. Now, the reality is we probably are looking at the end of civilization. And when I say that, you probably immediately start thinking I'm going to say society is going to collapse, there's going to be a big stock market crash, the end of the world is coming, you know, in a few months. And that's not what I'm saying. Probably we're going to see the end of civilization in another 100 or 200 years. And by that, I don't mean the end of human civilization. I mean the end of civilization as we know it. Probably the end of our country, the end of our society, the end of what we regard to be a golden age in the history of mankind. Historians will look back and they'll say, there was that moment when, like the fall of Rome, the best days were in the past. And it was a long, slow road, spiraling one little bit at a time toward the abyss. Again, just like the Roman Empire. The thing is, empires don't fall in a day. They don't fall in an instant. They endure long past their prime, a little bit at a time. They have their ups, they have their downs. It's just a long path of lower lows and lower highs. Because somewhere along the way, people stop being the best version of themselves and they become a little bit more corrupt. As that old adage goes, hard times make great men make good times make weak men lead to hard times. That's how it is. And I think every time I hear somebody say, oh my goodness, AI is so great, it's going to be the future, you know. You don't have to make a presentation yourself. You don't have to do your work yourself. Just, you know, use a chat bot. Those are the kinds of things that make me think we're probably getting closer to our decline. And the probability is that most of us here making and watching these videos will live out our lives, we'll have good lives, and then we'll die, and our descendants will go on, and they will have good lives, and they will die. Their descendants will go on and have good lives, and they will die. But there will come a time somewhere down the line when our descendants look back and they realize that one generation at a time we got weaker and weaker. We gave up the blessings we had by taking them for granted. And as time goes on, we erode principles that endure in favor of transient things. We're more interested in being self-serving than in serving something greater than self. We're more interested in how people see us than in doing things that are worthy. And somehow it all adds up to this calculus that we are stewards of a great charge, a duty to leave life better than we found it, each in our own unique way. And the question is, are we going to live up to that charge? Are we going to produce another great generation that helps propel humanity to greater heights? Or is this it? Is this the peak before the bubble bursts? And if there is any hope, if there is any silver lining, is the fact that we have the opportunity to make this defining moment in history not be the peak, not be the end. Just like all market tops, there's always the option for it not to be a crash, but a correction. That we find ourselves once again. And the best still lies ahead. But this isn't the time for us to be lazy and complacent. It's not the time for us to stop thinking because the computers can think for us better than us. It's a time for making the most of the opportunities that we have been given. There's a movie about the Vatican during the early 20th century. I don't remember what it's called, but I remember a gentleman was playing the role of the Pope in that movie. And he was, in this particular scene, shaving with an electric razor. And he was talking to someone else who was in the room about how much of a blessing the electric razor was. Because he said, this miracle of the modern age, the electric razor, allows me to shave and save time doing it, which means that I can spend more time in prayer and thankfulness to God. So you see, he thought because the electric razor saves him time, he can reinvest that time into something meaningful, something spiritually edifying and beneficial. So as we look at things like AI tools and the prevalence of the internet and social media and all of those things which potentially make our lives better, richer, and easier, the question is, are we going to use all of the tools and the marvels that we are given as a blessing and an opportunity for us to reinvest more of our time and more of our energy into service to something greater than self? Or are we going to instead go deeper into our silos, deeper into our shells of self-service and instead just become shells of empty ego? Will we use the blessings we have as an opportunity to learn or as an excuse not to? Will we use them as an opportunity to connect more? or as an opportunity not to connect at all. As with all tools, we have the opportunity to make the most of them or to use them as an occasion for not making anything out of ourselves at all. As an excuse for taking life for granted, or as an opportunity to make life richer. The choice is up to us, and if we can do anything in life to perhaps sway things in favor of a better outcome, I think it all comes down to understanding that we must, every day, try to serve some purpose and cause higher than self. The CEO of LinkedIn was addressing the leadership of Walmart the other day in a meeting, and she said, as we talk about whether AI is going to take away our jobs, things like that, it's important to understand that AI is not going to take away the opportunity to have empathy and care for other human beings. And so, as changes happen inevitably, it's increasingly important for us to prioritize the human element, to care about other people, to value other people, to communicate with them. It's important for us to show empathy, love, care, and concern. Because as time goes on, increasingly, there will be new tools and technologies that'll make it much less important for us to have hard skills, and much more important for us to have human ones. So think about that. In all things, maybe a little bit less water cooler gossip, maybe a little bit less cruelty, maybe a little bit less ignorance, maybe a little bit less ego, maybe a little bit more empathy, a little more kindness, a little bit more willingness to serve. In the end, all things may change around us, but the spiritual values which make us have the potential to be more than just a machine, those things perhaps never can be replaced. And so those are the things which will always be the most important commodities in human life. As always, on your adventure, best of luck with everything. Till next time. Thanks for watching.